Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GPP show, episode one. So, this is a new sort of more open format or sort of podcast form that I'm going to be bringing to the YouTube channel. I've been getting a ton of messages about when's the high performance podcast coming back. It's not coming back. This is the new format. I'm going to explain why sort of throughout this show. But yeah, this is just going to be it's not going to be every week. And it's not just going to be me either. Like, sort of what I'm looking to do, I've actually sort of been really inspired by sort of a combination of Jonathan Warren. A bunch of you should sort of know about him. I've done a bunch of podcasts on his channel. I'm also just a consumer of his content in general, but then also Jake Tura. Anyone who's been consuming my content for a long time should know who Jake Tura is. He's the Tendon King. And if you don't know who either of those people are, I highly recommend checking him out on pretty much every single platform. Jonathan Warren, much more active on YouTube, and then Jake Tura, much more active on Instagram, and then sort of intermittently with his podcast. And yeah, I did just sort of get, uh, I mean, I'll be honest, I was burnt out with the podcast, like in the format that we used to do it with the high performance podcast for quite a long time. I think it was just sort of this like the last 2 to 3 years of the high performance podcast was just this uh protracted mourning period of me coming to terms with the fact that I was no longer getting to work and create content alongside my brother, and just sort of this sense of superiority. Like, you hear all these sort of stats about like, oh, once you've done 10 podcast episodes, you're in the top 1% of podcasters. And I think, over about a 10-year period, we had I think we did over 500 episodes of the High Performance Podcast. Um, we had probably over 400,000 downloads. It was, and yeah, I was just so attached I was so grateful as well. Like I've had that feeling of, when your favorite podcast goes away and you're like, oh, damn, like why didn't they keep going for me? So like there was sort of this sense of obligation. But yeah, I feel like it was me just sort of trying to keep the band going when, like, at the end of the day, Oscar was the whole driving force of that podcast up until he had a kid and quit doing the show. And like, I don't hold any resentment to my brother for quitting the podcast or anything like that, just because I wasn't ready for him to give it up and I was really still attached to it. In hindsight, Oscar doesn't even work in the fitness industry anymore. He's been working in tech sales. Oh, how long has Oscar been working in tech sales? Wow. At least a year, maybe close to 2 years. Should message him and actually find out when that is. But yeah, just, I don't know. I was sort of just doing the podcast because I'm stubborn and I didn't want to quit it, but I wasn't bringing the energy that I wanted to it. Doing the podcast was sort of giving me anxiety. Like I was sort of, anyone who was listening to the show regularly would have noticed how, we went through periods of getting guests really consistently. And then I sort of ran out of people that I actually wanted to talk to. And rather than just getting the same guests on and asking them the same questions again and again and again, then we sort of went to just having myself and Jacob and Matt, the high performance podcast producer, who took over the reins of the production once Oscar quit the show. Um, but then I don't know, I didn't really feel like ranting about what was going on in my life or just going on sort of extended rants about random fitness or sporting topics or anything like that, at least not on a weekly basis. Um, and because especially getting more into YouTube as my long form, like I just sort of felt like any fitness topics that I wanted to rant and rave about in an extended format, YouTube was taking care of that, or running out of people that I wanted to interview on a consistent basis. My life isn't that interesting that you need weekly updates on that or anything like that. And as much as I enjoy the sports journalism aspect of what we did on the High Performance Podcast, yeah, at the end of the day, I don't need to be doing that necessarily on a weekly basis. So, again, with all that being said, here's a new sort of podcast style format. It's just, I'm not going to promise you any sort of regularity in terms of the schedule. I promise you regularity in terms of my overall content schedule on YouTube. You can expect at least one video a week. I want to get that up to 2 videos a week, but at this stage, I've been so inconsistent with that. Well, I have been consistent with it since I got back from New Zealand. Um, and I'm determined to be consistent with one video a week every single week this year. But like I said, ideally bumping that up to 2, but just conscious of not wanting to overpromise and underdeliver. And yeah, like I said, just seeing people like Jake Tura and the impact that his podcast episodes have. because he only does it when he has something to say or when he wants to interview someone who has something new to share that he thinks is going to be really impactful. Or with Jonathan Warren, he's just running a YouTube channel. He's talking. I mean, I've been on his podcast 3 times in the last year. He's having repeat guests and things like that. Um, but it's sort of his YouTube channel isn't just a podcast where he interviews other people. There's also he's got his own sort of solo podcast format scrolling through IG, which is some of the funniest shit. Me and Jonathan Warren have a very similar sense of humor, and I don't think there's anyone in the fitness industry who makes me laugh as much as him. If you were into Ziz and sort of bodybuilding.com era of fitness, I think you'll really enjoy Jonathan Warren's sense of humor. It's a bit crass, but yeah, it's fucking hilarious. But then he just sort of weaves that in with his regular YouTube content about his training sessions or whatever he wants to talk about. Um, so yeah, welcome to the GPP show. Who knows where it's going to go? But this episode, so obviously this is just a solo episode because it has been like 4 months since I gave you guys a life update, and there's quite a bit going on in my life that I want to talk about. So that's what this episode's about. Life updates from Gus. One of my favorite topics, talking about myself. All right, so what has been going on in my life? Pretty much spent the back end of last year, especially the period sort of from the last podcast, high performance podcast episode, just working on the production or the curriculum and then the production of all the content for GPP level two. So GPP level one, I was immensely proud of that and the impact that it had. I mean, the impact's ongoing. If you sign up to that sort of, not only is there all the pre-recorded content, and that side of things. But then there's the ongoing support, not just through the community aspect of the Discord, but then we've got like 3 live calls a week and you get access to that for life. It's just an ongoing rolling thing. But then we've added to the curriculum in the pre-recorded content with GPP level two, much more down the human movement rabbit hole. But like I said, I didn't want to, as someone who was mentoring a lot of coaches and going deep down the human movement rabbit hole, what I've realized is that stuff can really derail you as a coach if you don't have a really good worldview and a lot of underpinning principles. Going down the biomechanics human movement rabbit hole, it can be very unproductive and quite disorienting for a lot of coaches. Whereas now I feel confident if we go through GPP level one first and orient ourselves with our principles properly and realize that there's more to training outcomes than just biomechanics, then we can get into the weeds on that stuff and it's just much better contextualized. So not that GPP level two is purely about human movement. There's also a lot on running a business, especially the e-com side of things, content creation, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of topics that we dive into in GPP level two, but there's definitely a much larger human movement biomechanics component than what we had in GPP level one. GPP level one, it's diving into sort of worldview, underpinning principles, deep down the periodization rabbit hole, or at least our take on programming. Let's call it. I actually hate the word periodization. I just call it program design. And then also just a unit on each of the physical qualities. Hugely focused on, I guess, things that just coaches could just apply with their clients that week. Whereas, some of the stuff in GPP level two, it's sort of a little bit more just sort of long-term ideas that you might need to stew on for a bit. Anyway, so that all came out. It was a terrible time of year to release a continuing education course. I think we released it on like Christmas Eve or maybe even Boxing Day or something like that. But thanks to all our loyal customers, the launch period was still a massive sort of success. That tied out the end of the year, took us over into 2026, and pretty much I think January 4th, I set off on a surf trip around the South Island of New Zealand. And typically, when I'm away on these surf trips, I really try to keep up a consistent work schedule and content creation schedule. But this was the first sort of trip away that I've done where I didn't really put much effort into that. I wasn't intending on taking much of a break from it, but I don't know if anyone noticed, but yeah, it was probably the quietest. I mean, not probably, it was definitely the quietest I've been in terms of showing my face on Instagram and stuff like that in the last like 5 or so years. I think there was a couple of weeks where I only posted like one or two times on the gram. So, but it was really refreshing just to sort of detach for a bit. And like, there was no better place to detach than just me and my mate just roaming around the South Island of New Zealand, hunting for waves. I mean, it was an inspiring trip on so many levels. I feel like I've grown up, my old man surfs, and my old man did so much traveling around the world, surf and sports, all through sort of, 1970s, early 1980s, and he's just got so many adventurous stories. Like he went surfing in Morocco before anyone even knew what surfing was there. Like people were so freaked out when they saw surfboards there and guys paddling out into the waves to try and ride them. He's been through New Zealand, especially like a lot of the more blown out spots that are a little bit more well-known tourist spots. He was surfing them in the 70s when it was just farmers there and surfing the waves, just him and his mates. And that's what you hear from all the old boys. I mean, anyone who's dealt with boomers sort of knows what it's like. Everything was better back in the day. The music was better, the drugs was better, the waves were better. But this South Island, New Zealand trip, it was the first surf trip that I've been on where I had this genuine sense of adventure, even compared to the North Island. Like the North Island surf trips have been amazing, and especially compared to, going on a Bali surf trip or even surfing up and down the east coast of Australia, which I love very much. Like we're so blessed with waves here, both the waves in Australia, and then like, the places we can just take a quick plane ride to and get even more amazing world-class waves. But they're very, very crowded. Whereas South Island of New Zealand, it's like you're looking for people to surf with. And there's like, we went right down the bottom where like, if you just drive a boat off the bottom of the beach we surfed in New Zealand, and the next thing you hit is Antarctica. And there's all like this private land. So like, knocking on some random farmer's front door and be like, hey, like, can we run across your fields, your sheep grazing fields, and go surf the Point Break over there? And yeah, it was. I felt like I actually tapped into that sense of adventure and had an experience that's at least somewhat comparable to like all the war stories I hear from my old man. Um, and uh, anyone who's kept up with me for a long time will know that I've sort of wanted to push into surfing strength and conditioning for a long time. And it was sort of on this trip where I was like, man, like this is me living my. I'm very lucky to do what I do. I love just working in regular strength and conditioning. I love having an online business or a mix of sort of online face-to-face business. I kind of get to do as much of each as I want. Um, but I've always sort of been one foot in, one foot out, just with the idea of engaging in surf strength and conditioning, which, strength and conditioning for surfing, it really started to explode. I mean, there's been sort of a growing appetite for it. Surfers trying to take care of their bodies a little bit more. It's sort of been a trend, just as, the fitness industry itself is growing. But then I feel like when surfing got included into the Olympics, it kind of kicked it into overdrive. And naturally, I was sort of drawn to it. That's when I was getting back into surfing as well. And obviously, I'm a pretty good strength and conditioning coach. So, just putting two and two together, why not try to build a surfing strength and conditioning business? But honestly, like the reason why I didn't go into it was one, like a certain degree of imposter syndrome. I assumed that the surfing strength and conditioning coaches, not that they would lift more than me, but just that the ones who got accepted into the community, I guess, would be much better surfers than me. I'm a pretty good surfer, but yeah, I just sort of talked myself out. I was like, oh, I bet there'll be like guys who are like, nearly made the pro tour, but didn't quite. And then they, learned some strength and conditioning principles. Those will be the guys that take over surfing strength and conditioning. How wrong I was. I mean, like I said, I'm pretty good at surfing. I'll try to upload more videos of me surfing. It's just sort of, POV on the GoPro doesn't really capture it. I've got to go out and hire someone to film me surf, or maybe I'll just pay my old man to do it. But yeah, it turns out, I mean, I knew just based on what surfers are like that the strength and conditioning that we would see would be utterly heinous. Like a lot of fascia stuff, a lot of like really functional stuff. But I thought at least it would be delivered by like truly core surfers. But and there are decent surfers and there are decent surfing strength and conditioning coaches out there working with top level surfers and or surfers of all levels, really. But as far as the ones that have a big public profile and who are making a lot of content, not only are they terrible surfers, they're all terrible at strength and conditioning. Yeah, it's a truly heinous combination. And then just reflecting on the core principles of general physical preparation. So the core principles and the whole ethos, I guess, that underpins my brand and my company, General Physical Preparation. First and foremost, we want to upskill personal trainers because I hate that personal trainers, when the average person hires a personal trainer, they're essentially shoehorned into doing a shitty bodybuilding contest prep. And that's just because that's the only skill set that a lot of them have, or they just turn their clients into powerlifters or something like failing the shitty bodybuilding prep. But my vision is for strength and conditioning coaches more to have the skill set of a strength and conditioning coach, so that then we can actually, give the population not only what they want, but also what they need as well, just like a truly diverse fitness experience. But then on the strength and conditioning side of things, my big gripe with strength and conditioning is that it was so siloed. It's like, oh, you're a basketball athlete. Your strength and conditioning needs to be like this. You can't strength train like a powerlifter, or you can't strength train even like a soccer player. You have to strength train like a basketball athlete. And our core beliefs here at General Physical Preparation is that it's once you're not playing your sport, it's all GPP. Like SPP, playing your sport, GPP is all of your strength and conditioning. It's just general. Like basketball athletes need stronger legs. Soccer athletes need stronger legs. What's something that's not a field sport? MMA athletes need stronger legs. Hack squats, split squats, back squats, Zercher squats. It just doesn't matter. There's no like basketball squat. There's no jujitsu squat. There's no MMA squat. Same with all your plyometrics. Same with all your mobility work. Same with your conditioning. Obviously, there's specific physical qualities that might need to be emphasized a little bit more in certain sports. But again, it's way too siloed. And like I said, we just reject this notion of highly specific strength and conditioning for any sort of athlete. And yet, so that's the whole ethos of general physical preparation. And here I am sort of sitting on the sidelines as surfers get absolutely massacred by the worst functional fascia, surf specific strength and conditioning. I'm just sitting there watching it, letting it happen. Like, not even just seeing it on the internet, but like actually just having real life experiences. Like my dad and my mate's dad, especially, but then also just noticing other surfers that I talk to just getting so noceboed and bullshitted by all this content that's out there. And like, oh, you're a surfer. Oh, you can't just train like a normal person or any other athlete. You got to do a surfer split squat. It's just, yeah, it's absolute garbage. Oh, sorry. There's one other aspect of my hesitancy to get into surfing strength and conditioning that I didn't actually touch on, and that was just this honest belief that I don't think. Sorry, at the time when I was sort of one foot in, one foot out with like, oh, am I actually going to get into surfing S&C? This is probably my mindset going back to 2021, 2022. Like this was when surfing was first included in the Olympics. It was meant to be the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. It ended up being the Tokyo 2021 Olympics. God, what a crazy time. I just didn't really believe that good strength and conditioning could even have that much of an impact on your surfing. I was just like, surfers, it's so skill based. You just need to surf. And so the other thing that was going on at this time, like I had a big break in surfing. I spat the dummy with surfing when I was like sort of 19 or 20. Didn't really surf for like 7 years, and then got back into it when the whole world shut down in 2020. I spat the dummy with weightlifting. I was like, screw this, I'm getting back into surfing. And because it took me a while to sort of, get my skill set back with surfing and get back up to where I was when I initially quit, I'm sort of beyond that now. I saw some footage. I saw some footage of myself surfing. I just downloaded off the Surfline cam. I was like, damn, like I don't remember throwing this much spray. I don't remember having this much power in my surfing. And kind of hit me. I was just like, oh, right. That's because I didn't squat 190 kilos back in the day when I was just a skinny teenager. I actually just through my own experience, now I've sort of felt the impact that especially strength training can have on your power surfing. But I even think like, a little bit of, oh, sorry, I'll get into exactly how I see the potential impact of strength and conditioning for every level of surfer. Because that was the other thing. I was like, oh God, what would it even look like? Like, what would I sell? Like, I didn't just want to do it for the sake of content creation and slandering all the current surfing strength and conditioning coaches. I actually wanted to have an offering that was genuinely going to be helpful to not just advanced or intermediate surfers, but also beginner surfers. Like, and this is where it's like, it's a bit bigger than just strength and conditioning, but there's definitely a heavy strength and conditioning element to this. So, um, intermediate to advanced surfers, they can absolutely benefit just from building a stronger body. throw big, just going to have a bigger impact on the wave. You're going to get more spray. It's just going to have more, your surfing will just have more impact from that strength training. But then when you look at more advanced surfers who are doing aerial maneuvers and things like that, a lot of them get quite catastrophic injuries to the lower limb or blowing out their knee or doing things to their hip, but especially like ankles and knees is like one of the more common injuries that keeps you out of the water or keeps you out of competition for your more advanced surfers. And one of the key issues that surfers experience that's quite unique to surfers is sometimes the waves are flat for weeks and you don't do any big airs. So, like, a lot of, if you're a good surfer, these pros will surf a 6 foot wave and then they'll do like a 10 foot air off the top of it, or they'll travel through the air like 12 feet horizontally. And that's quite a big impact, like that landing that you've got to absorb. And when we talk about injury prevention, you know, sometimes, you try to control the load. Like you try to, I don't buy into acute chronic work ratio or anything like that. But I do believe there's something to be said for like a consistent dose or a consistent exposure to a stressor or a stimulus to keep your body resilient to it. What happens with surfers is they might not get the conditions to do that sort of surfing for weeks, dare I say months on end. And then they might get that condition for like a week straight. So it goes from like it's just so hard to control the load. And like I said, when you're doing something that's somewhat of an extreme high impact sport, injuries are still going to happen. But just being able to smooth out that load management curve with things like not just strength training, but especially I think things like plyometrics could be really, really helpful, not just for the athleticism, but for the resilience and overall load management of these more advanced surfers. Because like I said, it's not like skating where it's just like, okay, spent half an hour in the half pipe today, or I don't know how long skaters practice for each day. That was just sort of an example. It's like we don't get to decide how much time we can spend on a wave. It sort of just happens to you. Whereas just having a strength and conditioning protocol and a plyometric protocol, especially where you're actually in control of the amount of landings that you're exposing your body to, I think that that's something that could have a profound impact on the load management and injury rates in high level surfers. Intermediate surfers who aren't doing aerial maneuvers, again, it's just sort of strength, mobility, overall conditioning and endurance. And also an element of what the beginners need, which is just the ability to catch waves. You see so much like ground-based training for surfers, getting me out on surf skates and all these things that are supposedly going to help you become a better surfer. But the key issue why most people who try surfing never get good at it is they just don't catch enough waves. So that's going to be, and the reason why they don't catch enough waves is people just can't paddle for shit. And even the ways that they do get, because they're so bad at paddling, they barely get on them. And then if you can barely get on the wave, then it's even harder to stand up. So the issue just sort of compounds itself. And so what we're going to emphasize for the beginner surfers is just getting your wave count up, spending more time in the ocean, paddling your board around. But then I also understand that this is a huge issue for a lot of surfers, especially your weekend warriors who go start work early in the day, finish well after sunset, and they don't get any time to surf throughout the week. So, for those people, if you can't get into the surf, can we at least get into the pool? I'm pretty good with swing training and programming for that as well. And I think that that's the next best thing. Like, ideally, paddling around in the ocean more, trying to catch more waves. Second to that, spending time in the pool, improving your swimming. The whole reason I got good at surfing is because I basically trained like a pro swimmer, did swim squads my whole life. Mum and dad just forced me to, which I'm glad. Like, mum and dad were like, if you want to go to the beach by yourself, you have to be a weapon of a swimmer. So you've got to swim squads 4 mornings a week. I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. But now that I'm older, I've just witnessed so many people trying to get into surf and absolutely fail. I've realized like, yeah, I was just straight in the ocean, just catching 10 times as many waves as everyone else. So of course I got good. And then the proof that I have, or the extended proof I have of this is my mate who is like he's pretty overweight and he started surfing in his early 30s. And whenever I hear someone in their early 30s getting into surfing, I'm just like, no, you're just never going to get good. But he actually got good. And the reason was he swam squads back in the day. And as much as you lose a little bit of it, if you swam squads for like a 10-year period back in the day, like some of that is just coded into your DNA. And so the difference between him and every other uh, 30 is not middle age, but it's 30 something year old bloke who's not in crazy shape getting into surfing. They just don't catch waves. Whereas he was able to catch waves, and his rate of progression in surfing has been something that I've just never seen in anyone getting into surfing that late. So that was just more conceptual proof to me. That's like, okay, so it's like wave count, wave count, wave count, swimming, paddling ability, swimming ability, maybe maxing out the stack on the lat pull down would help as well. Just building some general physical qualities. GPP, it's important for everyone. That's what's going to get people through this beginner and into the intermediate stage. And then, yeah, just a little bit more general strength and conditioning, adding in some plyometrics and things like that. Like, I'm not going to hold off on plyometrics uh, until someone becomes an advanced surfer, because again, I just sort of believe in that that's just part of good training just from the early outset, but definitely emphasizing the role of that and the role it can play a little bit more in advanced surfing populations. So yeah, and so with that being said, I'm going to start a new Instagram page. Don't worry, like general physical preparation, my personal page, they're not going anywhere. Going to be just as active as them as I ever was. But then there's going to be a new page. I think it's going to be called Core Lord Performance. I'm going to start that in the next I'm going to start that this week. I'm putting it on record because I've just been putting it off for ages. Actually, there's another thing that's sort of tied into this story. So one of the other reasons that I'm extremely is this still yeah. So one of the other reasons that I'm pretty motivated to push all this surfing strength and conditioning content is because my mate who I just talked about who got into surfing a little bit late, like he's my main partner who I go on all these surf adventures with. And pretty much he's a school teacher, so we're doing all these surf trips in school holidays, but he sort of looks at the nature of my work. Oh, sorry, he's a music teacher who works in high school, so obviously he gets school holidays off. But he sort of looks at the nature of my work, and he's such a talented, not just guitar player, but just overall, just like a really talented musician. Like I'm not into music, but when I hear him talk about music, it really gets me G'd up. Like the same way like people get G'd up when I talk about strength and conditioning, because I'm just passionate about it, just at my very core. It just sort of radiates out of me. And he's the same with guitar, and he's like, fuck, like, because I talk to him, I'm like, yeah, I just sort of noticed like all these dickheads in strength and conditioning blowing up with content creation. I was like, oh, right. Like I could do that. I'm actually good at strength and conditioning. Like good coaches should be making content. I'm going to make some content and take my place at the table. And he's sort of looking at all these content creators being a little bit jealous, be like, oh, this guy fucking sucks. Like, how come this guy has this big online guitar brand and all these online clients and is able to sell all these digital products? And it's like, well, you just got to make the fucking content. So, oh, I might have to bleep out this swearing. Um, so I know he's going to commit to making guitar content this year, and I thought it'd be sort of good for me as well to grow a new sort of online business on the side, and even more so. So through the GPP education system, especially like GPP level one, in that community, I'm mentoring other coaches into the content creation journey. Like I'm hassling them. They're like, I'm like, when are you going to start posting content on Instagram and stuff like that? They're like, oh, I'll start next week. And I felt like I've been like this with surfing strength and conditioning because it's easy for me. I've got so much momentum with my personal brand and general physical preparation, but then I have been putting off. I'm in this velvet cage where I don't need to make this surfing strength and conditioning thing, but deep down I know I want it. So ultimately, one for my mate, trying to set a good example to him, be like, oi, because I've been hassling him. He's overdue to post his first online guitar tutorial video. What I don't know exactly what his content is going to be. He's going to figure that out. But then also just the amount of people that I'm hassling in the GPP level one community. Why aren't you posting your content? Why aren't you putting yourself out there? I've been a little bit crap in that regard. So that's why this week I've just gone full tilt into it, because this is what I say to the GPP level one coaches. If not today, then when? Tomorrow never comes. You keep saying tomorrow. So here's me leading from the front, and also it's just good to sort of grow something new, sort of show people that like I really do believe that I have a good principled approach to content creation, and yeah, I know I'm going to be able to grow this page because I just understand what good content creation is, and here I am like lecturing all these GPP coaches on it. And I'm just like, well, just lead from the front, sure, grow something new, show them how it works, and build some momentum with my new surfing strength and conditioning business online. So Anyway, that's enough about that. You'll be seeing if you yourself surf or if you know anyone who surfs, I would appreciate if you could direct them my way, especially once I get the Core Lord performance page up and running. I would really appreciate that. And so, alongside this announcement, about the building the surfing strength and conditioning business, I wanted to talk about some lifestyle changes because again, I was just on this surf trip, adventuring around, searching for waves, surfing all these sick breaks, and just about, man, like this is all I want to do. Or hell, even when I'm surfing just at my local beach, just down the road, I'll just be out there bobbing around in the ocean, be like, man, how blessed am I to be here right now? Like I love this so much. If I was a billionaire, I would still be doing this. It's something I like to sort of think about all the time. Like, people often always thinking about things like, oh, I'll be happy when, or just getting caught up in the rat race, always trying to 10x your business, make more money. But then when I'm sitting out there bobbing in the ocean, I'll be like, man, whether I was dead broke or a millionaire, this is ultimately all I want to do. Just be able to live close to the beach and just be able to surf whenever I want. But then also this other thing where just realizing that like I still don't surf as much as I would like. I lift weights more than I surf. And so that's something that I'm making a conscious effort to change this year. I want to be surfing at the very least as much as I'm lifting weights. So this week was the first week that I managed to achieve that. I spent 4 days, I did 4 days lifting weights and I surfed 4 times this week. And time equivalent was sort of about the same. But even I would like to be surfing even more frequently than I'm lifting weights because again, you can talk about your priorities and you can think about your priorities in a certain way, but when you reflect on what you're actually doing, that's what your priorities really are. So just trying to live in alignment with what's going on in my head and just living a more conscious life, I guess, for lack of a better word. And yeah, like I said, if I say I want surfing to be a priority, then it's like, well, make it a priority. And still very passionate about lifting weights. I also want to talk about some of my physical goals other than just serving better and capturing a little bit more of that for content creation as sort of like proof of concept online. But um, I've also another physical goal that I've publicly declared. So in 2024, I had all these training goals and I didn't hit any of them. It was 140 kilo clean and jerk, 120 kilo bench press, and running a sub 1200 meters. I didn't hit any of them. But then 2025 was a much better training year, especially on the lifting side of things. Absolutely smoked 140 kilo clean and jerk mid-year. I hit my 120 kilo bench press. God, what month was that? I think that was even earlier in the year. That was like 4 months into the year. So really, really locked in on the lifting side of things. But then, and yeah, the lifting is a bit easier to keep up with, or I definitely have a much bigger base of lifting. So even if I do take a break from it when I go on a surfing trip or something like that, it comes back a lot quicker. Whereas the running goal, I mean, last summer I didn't compete once. So I don't know if I progressed at all. Let's just assume I didn't, right? And then I pretty much burnt the whole of this track season. Again, I was just caught up with work a little bit more up until the end of the year. So Aussie track season, we're sort of in the tail end of it now. It sort of runs from October through to about March. And so yeah, I come back at the end of January from this surf trip. I haven't done any max velocity work since November last year. And I was like, God, if I just burnt a whole nother track season. So anyway, so I'm looking through the competition calendar and be like, man, there's like 3 events left that I can enter that I'm eligible for before we've just lost another whole track season. So I pulled my finger out because I'm like, this isn't good enough. And I've just been going down the local little athletics track club, sort of like, community local track club. And I did my first one of those last Wednesday, about a week ago, and I ran a 12,900 meters, which honestly, I'm pretty stoked about, especially after looking back on the footage. Because initially, I wasn't disappointed. I mean, I did say I would go home and end myself if I didn't run under 13 seconds, which thank God I ran under 13 seconds. But I was decelerating so much at the end of the race, which makes sense because again, not only have I just been hammering acceleration work, but it's been like very early acceleration work, like 0 to 10 meters, and like haven't been doing anything beyond that. I know I've sort of hyped up the transfer of a lot of locomotive plyometrics, especially hopping over to max velocity, but it's still not a good replacement for proper max velocity or even like a bit of speed endurance work. Um, But so looking just visually, I got my dad to come to the mum and dad came to the Little Athletics and filmed my 100-meter race. And my acceleration, I actually think was really good. So I think the work there has really paid off. But yeah, I just didn't have any fitness or like I said, my max velocity isn't that good. Like it's probably only a bit off where I truly need it to be, my actual top speed to run this sub 1200 meters. But my biggest issue is just all this deceleration at the end of the race. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how much the average person, even elite sprinters, right? They're sort of, a lot of them are sort of decelerating from 70 meters onwards. Um, but especially average Joes, like people like you and me, I mean, some of us would be decelerating from the 40-meter mark, let alone the 70-meter mark. Whereas I just need more exposure to these longer sprints and building up that capacity. And I'm pretty confident I'd be able. So my all-time PB is in a meet is 12:05. I think like 12:55, maybe 12:56 or something like that. Goal is trying to sub 1200 meters, but I'm pretty sure I'll if even if I can't, so there's a month left of Little Athletics, just these weekly Wednesday 100-meter races where I get the chance to be electronically timed and race against other people. I'm sure I can still get an all-time PB, even if I don't think I'll be able to crack sub 12 within the next 4 weeks. But I do think I'll be able to hit an all-time PB. So if I could squeeze out like a 12:3 or even a 12:4, I'd be absolutely stoked with that. I've just sort of got to flirt with this somewhat aggressive speed endurance protocol, which I'm going to take on, but then hopefully without blowing a hamstring or causing myself some other injury. Because, you're trying to run a 100-meter PB. It's like, it's not exactly a test that you can cram for. Or any sort of physical goal. You can't treat it like a exam where you just stay up all night cramming. I mean, even that's probably not a good strategy from my experience. You end up just typically overwhelming yourself. But it's the same when you're chasing these physical goals. But we'll have a crack. I'm confident that I'll be able to PB my 100 meters sometime over the next 4 weeks. Even just from, I think I'm getting a really good stimulus just from sprinting the 100 meters itself. But yeah, so hopefully you'll see me run a PB in the next month or something like that. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a breakdown on my sprinting journey in an upcoming video. Other than that, as far as my training goals, currently in a little bit of a lat and glute specialization phase. So again, just sort of looking at my physical properties and musculature compared to other people who are running faster than me. Just need a bigger ass. When you have a look at all good sprinters, they've just got so much proximal tissue on the lower limb. Just like big ass. Yeah, they've got strong quads and hamstrings and things like that, but just yeah, the muscle bulk is all around the hips when you look at elite sprinters. And again, a lot of that they've probably developed from sprinting itself, not the lifting weights side of stuff, but I think it's definitely can be supported or complemented just with, basically training like a women's wellness competitor. So that's why I've been hammering in the gym, but then also thinking about just, trying to do some things for my paddle power. I feel like full stacking a lat pull down wouldn't be bad for my paddle power. So I'm working my way into that as well. So what my goal on lat pull downs, I want to be able to full stack the lat pull down at my gym for a clean set of 5. And obviously sort of push beyond that, go order my gym pin and work beyond that in 2026. But yeah, just sort of in the next couple of months. I'm 2 plates away from being able to do the full stack for a set of 5. So and all my pants are getting tighter. So I feel like that's doing really well. And I've sort of so I was running the GPP 5-day split, the team training split, exactly how it was. I've sort of diverged from it a little bit, but I've made some updates to both the 3-day and the 5-day GPP team this month that just started. It's much more in line with the way that I'm currently training. It's just sort of weird because I've got the 3-day and the 5-day option for the GPP team training. I'm currently training 4 days a week, but I'm sort of hoping to be much more in tandem with the GPP 5-day split um, within the next month or so. Like I said, basically up until the end of this track season, I'm just diverged from it a little bit, but I'll be back on the 5-day protocol once track season ends. So if you want to train exactly like me, you'll be able to do that on the GPP 5-day split. And then if you're a little bit more time constrained, you can only dedicate 3 days a week to your training. We've obviously got the more accessible 3-day split option there. And then another reason is, once I start spending 5 days a week in the gym, I'm also obligated to surf at least 5 to 6 times a week. So obviously just trying to, build things up slowly there without tanking the back end of my unofficial track season. So yeah, that's sort of what's happening in terms of my life, the podcast for anyone who was wondering, my business and my training goals. I don't know when the next GPP show is going to be coming out. I don't know if there's going to be a guest. Like, there's definitely some people I want to interview for the GPP show. But yeah, like I said, don't expect this to be a regular thing, but you can expect another video out probably this week. So thanks to anyone who listened to this. Like I said, check out GPP level one. We've also got GPP level two. Immensely proud of those courses. I think they've had phenomenal impact on the coaches who purchase them and actually engage with the content. It's super applicable, just becoming a better coach, but then also growing a better business as well. If you want to train like me, I am opening up my one-to-one books over the coming weeks, but currently you can get into our team training. It's a really great deal. You can grab a free week from the links down below. If you're not interested in that, we've also got some other free resources. There's an accessory bundle. There's a gymnastics bundle or gymnastics movements that I like integrating into my clients' strength training. And then we've also got your intro to plyometrics. That's another free program you can grab down below. All right, that's enough from me. I will talk to you guys soon.